Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. You can always, we do record the show every week and you can watch it later at your convenience. And I will show you at the end of today's show where you can access all of our show recordings. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch, so please spread the word. Share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the shows we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries here in Nebraska, so that'd be similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and resources and databases and grants and consulting to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. K-12, public, academic, historical societies, corrections, archives, museums. Really our only criteria is something to do with libraries. We bring in guest speakers from all across the country to speak on NCompass Live sometimes, but we also have Nebraska Library Commission staff that come in and do presentations for us on programs and resources and things we're doing here through the Library Commission. Today, and that is what we have today. Joining us today, it is Amanda Sweet, who is our Technology Innovation Librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. Good morning, Amanda. And it is the last Wednesday of the month, so it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. Yay! Always the last Wednesday of the month. Amanda comes on every month on the last Wednesday to talk about something techie related. We do have tech shows other times during the month too, but you can always depend on Amanda being here on the last Wednesday of the month. So if you're the tech person at your library or interested in that kind of thing, sign up for her sessions every month. Almost every month. Every now and then we take a month off for various reasons. If you notice on our intro slides this year, in October, we're not going to be doing Pretty Sweet Tech. That'll be 1 month taken off. But as far as I know, every other month this year, she should be here with us. Yeah. And so today, Amanda's going to talk about what the heck is a technology innovation ecosystem. I have no idea. That's a mouthful. But Amanda will tell us all about it.
Now, the fun part of this is that I am a technology innovation librarian. So people have been asking me this question for a very, very long time. What exactly is technology innovation? So
sure.
That's what we're going to talk about here today.
Makes sense. What the heck is it that you do?
Yeah.
What is your job?
And a lot of it is actually, tech innovation is still kind of an evolving concept. And so what I'm going to talk about today is first what tech innovation is itself, how that fits in the world of an ecosystem of organizations that are trying to reach a goal, and what that looks like here in Nebraska, and then possibly a few examples from around the nation if I have time to get to it, and then some examples of where libraries actually fit in this emerging ecosystem and some different services we can start doing and what we're probably already doing that we just don't know as part of an ecosystem already. So I'm going to jump right into the simplified definition of what tech innovation actually is. Tech is only useful when it actually solves a problem. So technology innovation solves problems inside organizations in new and different ways. And in some cases, that problem is big enough that you can actually create a new organization out of it. One example is there's a construction company that was having problems with documenting their work sites. And they found out that there was not a product out there that would actually just let them store pictures in one spot and be able to send it to customers and receive it back and get feedback. So he created an app where he just takes his phone and he takes pictures of the construction site, it stores it, and then he can send it back, get feedback, and document it to say, hey, this looked like this before we got here, and here's the proof. And you know, so that's one example of how tech innovation works to improve processes. And that solution actually got big enough. He built it for his own company, but then it turned into a solution that's scaling nationwide.
Mhm.
So that's how tech innovation happens. And on the right-hand side here, you can see different examples of what tech innovation actually looks like in practice. It can turn into like a product that actually gets sent out. If you look behind me, you might be able to see some of the tech gadgets that go out.
Yep, that we
The
went.
school,
Yeah.
right? And that is the problem they were trying to solve is that we needed a better way to be able to introduce kids to tech skills. And then they said, here's a robot. But if the library or the school doesn't have the in-house staff to be able to teach this stuff from scratch, you can use our pre-baked curriculum and just use this robot to be able to do simplified pre-baked activities. And when you get good enough, you can start going rogue and starting your own stuff with it. So that was a product that solved the problem of tech access. And then it can be services, libraries are reaching people using hybrid. Right now, this tech innovation is being able to reach people through video conferencing. We weren't always able to do that.
Yep.
It's tech innovation. So all these different processes and tools are part of innovation, reaching people in new ways, changing the way that our processes and how we do things, and it's just a whole new thing here. So jumping over into the next part of this is that making that tech innovation happen is not always an easy thing, and it always takes a whole lot of people to be able to accomplish it. So over time, we had this ecosystem that got put together that says, you're an individual organization and you have innovation that needs to happen. But in order for that innovation to happen, you need to know that the technology exists in the first place. Then you need to know where to go to be able to get answers to find out how to build this solution. Does the solution already exist and we just need to adapt it? Or is this a solution that we need to build up from scratch? But then how can we do that? And now once we actually have a solution in place, then we need to be able to train people to actually do the thing. Now that company CAM, I'm 95% certain that was the name of the construction company that made that little app, but don't quote me on it. But when they built enough jobs to be able to keep doing that at construction site after construction site, they had to be able to train people to be able to go out and train others on how to use this equipment.
Mm.
And I mean, that's more of a simple example, but there's more complex examples out there. Like Bywater Solutions is out there, and a lot of the libraries, if you're a library out there, you've probably heard about them doing the open source software. Then they created all the new jobs to be able to help libraries be able to implement that stuff.
Yeah,
So
and it
once
just shows
you,
you that it can be something so simple too. As
yeah,
simple as it
yeah,
doesn't have to be, oh God, technology, I don't know, it's
right,
too
yeah,
high above me. No, it can be something as simple as what that construction company did.
yeah,
Yeah. And as
and
complex as a whole, yeah, library,
yeah,
ILS circulation, the whole deal that Bywater does. Yeah.
yeah,
We have our Pioneer Consortium here in Nebraska is using Bywater,
yeah.
a group of
And
libraries. Yeah.
then you need people like the people, the folks in Bywater train the library staff to be able to use
Mhm.
the service, and it's just keeping people up to date with that new technology. And so now we need to have the education and training that helps people reskill and upskill so that they can actually use the stuff. And then the ecosystem also helps to, once that those jobs exist, you need to be able to attract and retain the talent that is going to be doing the thing. And that
Mhm.
means working with kind of community partners to beautify downtown. That's why if you go drive through Old Market in downtown, there's all this new construction and they built that new um, park system that's over there because they want the new people that are coming in to enjoy the environment. And that's why you have the affordable housing people coming in and saying, like, we want people to be able to live here and we want to be able to promote that our houses are affordable and awesome. So we actually have to make that happen. And right now, that's one of the drawing factors for the tech innovation system here is that we say that stuff is affordable. But then on the flip side, we say that one of our biggest state problems is affordable housing. And I'm like, well, which one is it? Like,
Is it or isn't it affordable?
yeah. But then they squint one eye and say, but if you compare it to Chicago or New York, and I'm like, fine, okay. But,
Yes, of course, if you compare it, but that's where
yeah,
cost of living comes into play. Yeah.
right, yeah. So now you have all these different organizations that are coming together around these three goals, which is start the new high growth businesses that are leveraging technology to solve problems like Builder Trend, Google, Amazon, these giant companies that are going to be creating the new jobs, and then work with the existing organizations to create jobs within these organizations. My job would be an example of that. We didn't always have a tech innovation librarian until it was probably Michael Sowers that made it,
Um,
or was it before him?
no,
Doesn't
that
matter.
was when he started here. Is when we first we created that position, and then that position was created here. He was then he was the first person hired into it.
Okay,
He
okay,
wasn't
so it
already
was
here. No, yeah,
okay,
we created that
yeah.
position. Yeah.
So because all this tech was happening in libraries, we needed to create a position to fill that. And then this is how tech innovation happens and creates jobs. And then we need to be able to keep people trained in it. That's the third goal in it. And so this is kind of the generic headings of what a tech innovation system looks like. This is what we want people to be doing to be able to actually cooperate and work together and communicate together. This is not always exactly what's happening. This is the ideal Legoland situation where um, business and policy and nonprofit and education all get along and build stuff together. But keep this slide in mind. This is what we want. It's starting to get there.
Yeah, I had to go and look it up because I wasn't sure when that all happened with us having the technology innovation librarian here. I believe the position was something more generic before, and then people here realized that we need something,
Yeah.
like you said, it's becoming big. And actually, that was in 2007 was when
Oh,
we
was it
first
really?
created the position. Yes, it was a long time.
That really, yeah.
And so we've had it here for a while, but it's just been, and and I know the title. Other places had that same title as well. Possibly other state
Yeah.
agencies or other actual libraries or universities had similar type title.
And everyone I talk to does something different. Like it's the same
Yeah,
title, but it's different tasks. So it's basically looking at the world around you and understanding what the problem is you're trying to solve, and then finding new and different mechanisms to solve it.
yeah. I think
And
it depends on where you're at, like what it has to look like
yeah,
too.
yeah,
And what your focus is. We've had various people in that position. Now we have you, who
yeah,
have done all sorts of different things with it over the years. Yeah, so it is a
yeah,
very fluid job description. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like it's a flowing, adjusting, adapting process.
Mhm.
And so, in order to help libraries figure out where they actually fit in the ecosystem of starting to cultivate these new businesses and cultivate new jobs and attract and train this talent that's going to be doing all this stuff, we actually need to look at the process of innovation.
Mhm.
And this is probably the easiest way that I found to introduce what this looks like. On the left-hand side, this is a robot called the Grain Weevil. And the Grain Weevil was actually developed here in Nebraska. And it's a robot that goes into a grain bin silo and it uses these little augers to propel itself forward and it breaks apart the grain so it doesn't get all clumped up. And before you would have an actual human that would have to climb into the silo and break up these clumps so that it wouldn't get stuck and the grain wouldn't start rotting away. And because of the nature of the grain, it was easy for people to get sucked down and you would have injuries, deaths, and just
People would die.
horrible bad. Yeah. And this is how Chris Helmsworth died in the movie Silo. So keep Chris safe. Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. So this was actually developed by, I don't know if he was still in high school or if he had already started college at this point, but he was a college student at the time that this company was formed. And before this, he had actually had exposure to robotics and was really curious and interested in robotics. But just having the exposure to the robots didn't actually, it was half the equation. Innovation only happens when you pair that together with exposure to the problem. He had a family friend that he was visiting, and the family friend found out that he liked robots, and he said, if you could build me a robot so that I never had to go into a grain silo again, I would love you forever. And then the guy looked at him and said, I think I can do that. And then he started going through and iterating and developing different stuff. And every time he would have a break from college, he'd be working at this. And because he had the connection over to the university system, he had the connection to entrepreneurship resources and he had the connection to research and development for technology. And then he had the path to be able to explore and build those skills in robotics and AI and all this different stuff. So for him, this process happened in a haphazard way. And if he had actually had a more comprehensive ecosystem around him from the start, it may have been easier and it may have been faster to actually go through this, and he may not have had to bump and bounce his way through this process in a messy sort of way. So, this is what the ecosystem is coming together to say that we have all this new technology. Half the people don't even know what exists or what it can do. We need to help people gain exposure to what the tech is going on. We need people to know what AI is, what robotics are, what IoT is, cloud technology, drones, and all this different stuff. But then we can't stop there if we want innovation to happen. We have to pair it together with the problems that are happening right around us in our businesses, in our communities, in our anywhere you happen to set foot. And then you need to have a way to say, if people get interested in robotics or interested in AI, we need to be able to give them a pathway that says, in the library, we just introduced people to these skills, but how can we help them get a step forward and connect over to industry professionals and connect over to the right training programs and start dappling upward instead of just dappling in chaos? And then how can we connect these people over to the entrepreneurship resources and the business groups and the vendors and the consultants that are going to help them take an idea that started to percolate when technology met for the problem space. And if someone says, I can make a robot out of that, and they're not enrolled in a college or a university, where can they go to find support?
Mhm.
And that's where the library can come into play, is to say, we have a whole database that you can search here that has resources. We can send you over to SourceLink so that you can find what you need to do and we can help walk you through the process. And SourceLink is a database of entrepreneurial support resources that's already been put together by Scott Asmus over in, I think he's in UNO. He could be in UNL, but I'll Google it and let you know later. And so now we have a baseline of what the process looks like. But then we start digging in deeper, and I say,
UNO, University of
UNO,
Nebraska,
okay,
Omaha.
thank
I
you.
can do the Googles while I can do the searching while you're presenting. Yep. Please.
Appreciate it. You know. So I take this a step forward and I say, how can we not only drive tech innovation, but drive tech innovation where it's most needed? How can we funnel it toward affordable housing? How can we funnel it toward improving ag tech? How can we funnel it toward things that actually make our community stronger? So this is the framework, the baseline framework of how an ecosystem works. We want people to be able to gain exposure to the tech. So then this actually cultivates a new little system of agencies that are working in each one of these different spaces. So in AI and data science, we have Can Analytics that is kind of leading that space here in Nebraska. And they have a data science academy where they're experimenting with new ways to be able to attract and retain talent. And then they have all these different development and agile learning communities, and we have UNL that's hosting some of these AI sessions so people can understand what's going on and understand AI regulation and understand how AI innovation actually works. And then we have the robotics cluster, robotics heartland cluster, that their funding is actually starting to run out at the end of this year, so they're actually seeking new funding. So they are running out of innovation studios at UNL right now. So I'm hoping they've been doing awesome stuff, so I'm hoping that they can continue doing what they do, but we'll find out soon. And the Johnny Carson Center for Emerging Arts has been doing a lot with XR, but they have like a specialty niche thing in XR. So a lot of it has been like a nationwide support or vendor support.
Mm.
So that's sort of like a little mini example of how some of these sub ecosystems around the technology are starting to take shape. But then this technology also overlaps with some of these different, I call them problem spaces. Most people don't actually build their ecosystems like this. Most people jump straight over and connect them over to an industry and say
Mm.
that, so in most ecosystem circles, this problem space will be an industry space. And we'll say, where does this fit in manufacturing? Where does this fit in ag tech? Where does this fit in whatever? But this is just how I happen to frame it. You'll find different frameworks just everywhere.
Mm.
And so then the last one is, in order for whether you're using industry or problem, you have to actually have a mechanism to solve that problem or a mechanism within that industry. There'll be a business that's set up in manufacturing or a business that's set up in ag tech, or you'll have a nonprofit that's doing policy work. So there actually has to be an entity or an organization that's doing this stuff. And each one of these has its own ecosystem. Are you surprised? So, so there's the entrepreneurial ecosystem. There is like the nonprofit of the Heartland ecosystem. There's there's a ton of them. Education, we all know, has a massive ecosystem surrounding it. So we actually have a collision of multiple different ecosystems that come together in different ways. And what this looks like in practice is that in the library, you might host a little STEM or STEAM activity that is centered on AI. And you'll have someone who's like, I love this, I need to learn more about it, but what am I going to do with it? And then you say, okay, we're going to connect you over to this local business over here that has been using AI to build recommendation engines for where they should have new insurance policies that are going to be set up. They
Mm.
are using AI, like Zesty.ai is actually used for wildfire insurance and for
Mm.
disaster recovery insurance to figure out what the risk model is and how much they should charge each different person. And then there's a group of nonprofits that starts to use that information to say, okay, we know what makes this risky. So now we're going to work with our local homeowners association and start doing outreach and education to say, if you were to do weatherproofing over in this area, you're going to reduce your insurance rates considerably. And now that nonprofit is starting to reduce the risk of wildfire if it actually does happen because they're lowering the cost of insurance significantly. So that's how an ecosystem works. If you pull one lever over here, then the other levers react, and everything is interconnected like that. And when you start laying it all out, you can see where it all connects together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
have I got the diagrams for you? But we don't, yeah,
Visual stuff, yeah, I like that. That works
yeah.
for me. Yeah. We
And
have a question about this. Someone says, I'm interested in how the agile process would integrate in the training process. Or is it just as a need to know what it is kind of concept?
I guess, so you're talking, like I was talking about agile development and agile programming. So that would, in library land, that would be more letting people know what agile is and then introducing technology in a way that uses the agile process instead of just using like a standard out of the box process.
Mm-hmm.
And then saying, now that you know what this looks like, let's send you over to the agile developers community, and let's send you over to a collection of curated books and resources so that you can better learn what agile looks like. And then you can start, if you're an adult or a business owner, you can start implementing this in your current workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a kid in K through 12, if you're in high school looking for a job, you can start exploring careers that are related to user experience research or agile development or software development or any number of different things. Agile is in every one of these. And you can start using that information to get a leg up to get a better job. Because if you go into a college interview and you already know about agile and you know about these processes, you're going to look better than a candidate who doesn't.
Right, right.
And yeah,
It's a got it. Thank you.
yeah. And okay, so this is your baseline of what the innovation looks like. And you can see this can either be real complicated or real simplified, but we're going to keep it simple for now. So digging into what Nebraska's ecosystems look like, um, in every ecosystem, there are different focus areas. So this applies not only to tech innovation ecosystems, but an ecosystem that's working toward affordable housing or toward pretty much any, like, insert problem here, you need this stuff. You need people who are over here actually researching and understanding the problem, and you need people that are going to be saying, we should be funneling our shared resources in this direction. So these are the studies that say we just did a statewide comparison of what our tech careers actually look like. These are what the current areas are. These are the number of people that are in each of these areas. These are the vacant positions. This is where we need to actually start cultivating resources and cultivating services to say, we need 5,000 more software developers across the state, and we're anticipating these number of jobs. And these are the organizations that could have software developers that don't yet because they haven't had the resources or support to implement it. And these are the people that need their websites revamped, and these are the people that need web training, and these are the people that need whatever. And now, how are we going to work together to be able to make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these groups that say, okay, we're going to take this information that probably came out of a university or like a corporation or a major group. We're going to take that information and we're going to build a strategy. How are we actually going to tangibly solve this problem? Who are the people who are going to help? What is this going to look like? And then we look over and say, okay, is there any state, local, national policy that's standing in our way? we had this technology that got updated, but now our policy didn't necessarily update with it. Or we ran into a snag and now we need to be able to start working with our local legislatures to be able to make this change. One of the biggest things here is that they've been looking at AI policy and data sharing policy and data governance and saying we're innovating with all this AI, but how are we actually keeping people safe while we do it? And we're innovating with all this AI, but the process, the regulations that new businesses have to jump through are really cumbersome and confusing. How can
Mm.
we streamline and make this a little easier for folks? So we have people working on the policy and advocacy level, and even um, the grain weevil robot, they actually had to work at this policy and regulation level to get the robot approved by the FDA, make it because if you have a robot that's touching the grain that's going to turn into food, then it has to be food safe. Like, and you have to prove that this robot isn't introducing other chemicals or you get the idea. You
Yeah.
had to get approval and say that this robot is safe to use and safe to interact with humans. So they had to both cultivate the new policies that didn't exist yet and navigate the policies that they didn't know existed. And in some cases, try to adjust the policies because it just wasn't working in the world that we live in right now. So that's a whole mess for any tech group that's building this stuff. And then you jump down into education and training to say that once you actually have navigated through this and you know the mechanism that you need to do, then you need to work with education and training partners to actually get people up to speed and running on all of this different stuff. And then these are the groups that are starting to build out like the internships and apprenticeships and finding new education pathways because education's getting more expensive and because people are just not doing it because they can't afford it or because they just don't know what's out there and that exists. So they're
Mm.
doing outreach and building new pathways and changing the way that we reach people. And then the funding mechanism is the kind of the plug and power that makes all this stuff happen. And the funding is actually changing for everyone right now because,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a whole thing. You know? So they're trying to cultivate new funding mechanisms and trying to cultivate new sources that will be able to help make this whole engine run smoothly. And then you also, and this last little bucket here could be an ecosystem around the industry. It could be an ag tech ecosystem, a manufacturing ecosystem, an affordable housing ecosystem. It's the people that are subject matter experts, nonprofit ecosystem, whatever it happens to be. And in the area of tech innovation, here in Nebraska, we have two major tech innovation clusters. The first one is the Nebraska Tech Collaborative that is run through the Exarban Foundation that's out of Omaha.
Hmm.
And this one is, they live more in the strategy, education, and training, and somewhat in the funding zone. And they also do a lot of the research. So they built working with UNO, they built a giant dashboard that kind of gives the statewide rundown of what our tech careers actually look like. And they use the NAIC codes and SOC codes for each different career, but then I asked them which careers actually used AI and which careers used robotics, but because of the way these NAIC codes are classified, they don't actually go into that detail. So we're trying to drive AI innovation, but we still don't have that granular level of data that says how many AI jobs we actually have. And it's not the fault of the study that did it. It's
Hmm.
more on the area of there's just not a code for it yet. And So you can go to the Nebraska Tech Collaborative site to be able to, I recommend subscribing to both of their newsletters, and then you'll actually get kind of an updated scenario of what they're actually doing. And the Tech Collaborative has been focused on internships and growing partnerships between education and business partners.
Nice.
And yeah, and then they also do a lot in, they're expanding their research a tiny bit, and they're still pivoting to find out what they need to do better next. And Tech Nebraska has been working more in the policy and advocacy area. So they've been working on the AI policy and advocacy, and then they've done some stuff to work with to cultivate an ecosystem that is, I want to say biomedicine, but it could just be biotech. But they're working on cultivating like a biotech group that's across the state. And Tech Nebraska is actually the newer one out of here. They started in 2023, 2022 or 2023. They're actually pretty new, and they're currently looking for a new executive director. So if you know anyone who's like super into tech ecosystems, give it a try. So they are probably going to pivot once they actually find a new executive director, but they'll probably still be working in policy and advocacy and working on cultivating that biotech group.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So somebody has a question, is you talked about the tech collaborative is involved in education and training, and
Mhm.
is this something that, how can libraries, would these like groups come to libraries or help libraries with their training? How would a library get involved?
So there have been various ways that that has happened. Some libraries have worked with the AIM Institute, and the AIM Institute actually has educators and trainers that go out and do that training.
Mm-hmm.
The AIM Institute does not have coverage everywhere statewide, but
Mm-hmm.
they do have coverage in like the major areas. Like they've got folks in, of course, Lincoln, Omaha, but they also have it in Scottsbluff. I want to say Norfolk. Um, you'd have to reach out to them to actually find where their current coverage area is. And they used to actually have more one-on-one where they would send a facilitator out to do STEM and STEAM activities, but they don't have the bandwidth for that anymore. So they do more, they've done some online courses, they do some in-person outreach, and they do a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also within the tech collaborative, the extension is also a partner in there.
Oh,
So
nice.
there's also, and I am completely blanking on the name of the sub-ecosystem that kind of overlaps with the tech collaborative, but they're based out of Omaha, and Julie Stigman is the executive director over there. I met with her probably a year ago, and it's the Omaha STEM ecosystem. It'll be easier. They focus almost primarily on K through 12 education. So they would have more resources that are not only Omaha, but they are also, they're trying to trickle more of the resources down statewide. The Omaha STEM ecosystem, they work a lot with Prairie STEM too. And Prairie STEM has pre-baked resources that you can use to basically grab and go your own stuff. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
I worked with Prairie STEM a little bit, probably 2, 3 years ago, and we did kind of like a little mini program with them where we would send out some of their tech kits to see how libraries would get on with them. And that's how I uncovered a lot of their STEAM lessons. So if you go to their website, you can also grab a bunch of these different lesson plans and activities.
They're all there free for anyone
Yeah.
to use. Yeah.
And at one point, they actually were selling the kits too. I'm not sure if they still do that, but um, you can reach out to them and find out if they're still doing that.
Mm.
But otherwise, if you look at the lesson plan and activity, most of it is found objects, so it's not that hard to just grab it and run with it. And they've also got, I'd recommend just reaching out to them because Prairie STEM also is a key player in the Omaha STEM ecosystem and also in the somewhat is in the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, but more in the Omaha STEM. And I'm going to jump back on over here. Hopefully that more or less answered your question.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
bunch of, and if you were to reach out to the Nebraska Tech Collaborative and just say, can you refer me to an organization that will help me do activities around manufacturing or activities around whatever, they can
They
refer
can
you
get you.
over to the right organization. So if you, Shauna Dorsey is the head of the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, and then it used to be Laurel Oken, who's was the executive at Tech Nebraska, but she's the one who is um, leaving, and they're going to
They're
replace her
looking
pretty
for
soon.
him
Yeah,
after, yeah. Right.
and let me jump over here. And I'll also put in Omaha STEM ecosystem, which is Julie. But I didn't put that one in because it's not really statewide and it's also overlapping with Tech Collaborative, but whatever. It's still helpful. And they live in education training. So to summarize kind of the major needs across the ecosystems, the biggest priority for collaborative has been the internship programs.
Mm.
Um, Admittedly, I kind of dropped off a little bit from I used to do more with the tech collaborative, but they focused on internships more, so I don't do internships, and that's just not a thing that I do. So if you do, cool, but you know, and what I do more is the exposure to the new and emerging tech, and then helping people connect over to tech career pathways. And then they also need more AI regulation and helping people understand AI ethics. And in order to understand AI ethics, you need to understand how AI works. Because if you knew how AI worked, you'd probably be as freaked out as I am right now. And some of you
Mhm.
probably are. A good chunk of you probably are.
Oh yeah. Yes.
You know?
It's
But
I'm glad there are people totally on the bandwagon, and there are some of us who are, whoa, back up. No,
yeah,
there are
yeah,
so many. It's not the savior and not innocent at
yeah.
all.
It's not even a little bit.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest areas that libraries can go into is encouraging in entrepreneur land, they call it collisions, but they're encouraging collisions across like the business space and the tech space and the nonprofit space and just helping people mix and match and share ideas and start to drive innovation through unexpected connections. So one way that libraries can do that is by starting to host jumpstart activities where they start presenting a challenge to a group of people and then just say, we're going to give you like a few weeks and we're going to guide you through the process of building out your own pitch to this solution. And then whoever wins has the best pitch is going to get like X number of dollars, or they get connected over to these support resources or connected over to
Hmm.
whatever your community feels like rewarding them with. And some people just do it for the fun of the game too, to know that to learn the process. So yeah. And the other one is new funding mechanisms, which brings me over to the SBA innovation ecosystem, which will load eventually, I promise. So most libraries, they've either at least heard of or already work with the Small Business Administration to be able to do business support resources and bring in guest speakers for training. But a lot of people don't know about the SBA's Investment and Innovation Ecosystem Development Division. And they actually do a monthly networking call that gives the latest and greatest about what's happening in the innovation ecosystem space. So if you subscribe to their newsletter and you start attending some of their monthly meetings, yeah, you can learn a lot about what's happening in the space just by going to those. And then you can also start exploring some of the funding mechanisms that are going on. The most recent grant application just closed, but that one was a way that you can start cultivating ecosystems that would be driving new funding mechanisms and diversifying funding mechanisms. And that one closed probably a couple months ago, but they have like a rotating system of opportunities. And their next one is tomorrow. So they have a SBA monthly innovation ecosystem network call tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. So you can go through their website to be able to register for it.
And you might not know this. Is this someone wants to know the grant funding, which I know, I'm assuming it'll open up again at some point. Is this something that libraries will be eligible to?
Libraries would be an eligible entity, and the requirement would be that I'm sure that they're going to update their eligibility requirements like every year, but as a state agency, we were eligible, and as a public or other library, you would likely be eligible because you're part of a workforce development community. So you
Mm,
basically just need to be able to prove that you're a workforce development community partner. And if you have like a maker space or an innovation space, or you offer tech support resources or innovation ecosystem resources, then you would qualify for a lot of the SBA or innovation ecosystem funding. And you can also look at EBLN. EBLN is the Ecosystem Builder Leadership Network that is geared toward cultivating. I will let Andy know that my computer doesn't like him. This is, let me see if I can just go to this. He probably didn't update. I know Andy, I'll go to his site, but FortiGuard won't let me. So I don't know what FortiGuard doesn't like about his website, but um, the Ecosystem Building Leadership Network
mm,
it's run by Andy Stoll, and he used to work with the Kauffman Foundation. And through the Kauffman Foundation, he did a massive project into building entrepreneurial ecosystem builders. And now he's trying to build a nationwide network that would be essentially turning this into its own field and building out the best practices of what entrepreneurial ecosystem building would look like. And so if you can actually get to the website, it is a good website, but something about our network
yeah,
is
I was
not
thinking
liking it.
that.
Yeah.
So when I just said, go ahead and do it anyways. It blocked it. It says it's a newly observed domain. I wonder that ebln.us is a new domain.
He's had it for at least a couple years. Like he's had it for probably a year to a year and a half, and he owned the domain before that.
Yeah.
So it's not. like absurdly new.
And well,
But
this is the state of Nebraska has this software, this FortiGuard
yeah.
security stuff, so it may be it's just an us thing. Don't, yeah.
So if you have the same problem that we do and you can't get to it, you can also go to the Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Building Playbook, and this is a slightly older version. This is his work from the Kauffman Foundation that transferred into EBLN. But if you can get to EBLN, he also has a podcast and then a newsletter. So if you subscribe to both of them, you can start hearing more about what's going on in each of those different spaces and start keeping track of all the things that be. And you can also go to the Urban Libraries Institute
Mm-hmm.
because they've had a project apparently since May of 2018 about library strengthening entrepreneurial hubs. So they have a whole toolkit that could be helpful for you. So if you want to dive into the entrepreneurial support side of the innovation ecosystem, this is a good library resource for you. And they also have some workforce and economic development resources. And so I just recommend going to the Urban Libraries um, website.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're urban, rural, whatever, it will be a helpful resource. And then another one is the E2O entrepreneurial. There we go. If you are more rural, and this is another one that is good for both urban and rural, but it started in rural.
Mm-hmm.
This is an entrepreneurial ecosystem group that they specialize in rural, but they also do everywhere. So they also have a blog, a podcast, and this E2, the main guy was also just focused on, he was just featured on the EBLN podcast. So they're all synced up together. So the SBA, the EBLN, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and then the startup community way is the other one that she should. They also have a few books out there. This was written by Brad Feld and
Mm-hmm.
Ian, can't remember his last name, Ian Hathaway.
Yeah.
And so they started with this is the second or third book, but is like the pioneer in building startup ecosystems and tech ecosystems. And even though this says startup, he is actually focused on tech innovation because he runs a tech-based accelerator out of Colorado. So Techstars is the name of it, and Techstars is one of like the biggest accelerators that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he he wrote the book, so he's yeah. So if you're looking for referral resources, you can also get a group of librarians together or a group of librarians and community members and use the Startup Community Way and his original book. um that's not it. This one. So this is the original, like the OG. So this is a good place to start. The Startup Community Second Edition for building an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Just read this as a group, read it all together, and then start having like a conversation around it and just use this as a launching pad to start building out your own ecosystem. And these, you can use this slide as a framework to actually start simplifying and use it as a reference point to be able to build out what your ecosystem could look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because ecosystems go haywire when none of you can agree on which problem you're actually solving,
Do you want to
which
make
is,
that full screen for the
yeah,
presentation? And also mention too, these slides, the link to the slides will be available to everyone afterwards with the show archive.
Yep.
They'll be
Yeah.
sending us the link to the Google Slides. So you'll have all of this for yourself.
Yeah. So one of kind of the commentaries on the ecosystems here is that none of them seem completely cohesive and they all seem to be shifting and sliding in different directions. And it's because if you remember that slide where I pulled up those 3 different goals,
Mm-hmm.
each one of those different goals has a very different process that you need to follow to succeed. And each one of those different goals, each one of the ecosystems is trying to solve all 3 of them. And when you started, like the Nebraska Tech Collaborative wanted to do um, innovation to drive entrepreneurship. They wanted to help businesses that needed training and outreach. They wanted to help everybody. And it's debatable whether it actually, they're still adjusting their format to be able to find what actually works. So solving a single problem in the library is a good place to start. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to prove impact long term, and you're not going to be able to have a cohesive focus to be able to build out what this ecosystem actually looks like. And if you don't already have an ecosystem that's physically mapped out in your community, in your state, in your area, then mapping that ecosystem is easier when you have that framework solved. And I've been doing ecosystem mapping for a while now, and I won't promise that it's easy, but I can promise that it's worth doing. So I don't have time because it's already 11 o'clock and we're hitting the top of the hour now, but I don't have time to go into the mechanics and the steps of what it actually takes to design and build an ecosystem map and the different ecosystem mappings that you could do. But I can give you the slide that gives you a starting point and a step and the books and the resources. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you do want to dig deeper into ecosystem mapping and what this all looks like, shoot me an email. I'll pull up my contact information.
Yeah.
But I'm going to jump over to some of the additional resources that could be helpful for you as you're getting started with this. If you are new to tech careers and what tech actually looks like, you are going to be trying to introduce these technology types to your community. So if you're wondering where the tech to focus, look here. These are the different categories to start in on. And these are the different careers that actually show up across each one of those different categories. So if you're trying to choose curriculum, or if you're trying to choose activities, or you're trying to work with an agency to cultivate some of these programs, make sure that some of these, all these careers, or at least most of them, are represented because this is what people need. And these are some of the resources that I've already made that you can click through and start to figure out what could be helpful for you. And then if you're here in Nebraska, you can also check out a tech kit and you can get some of these robots and gadgets sent over to your library so that you don't have to try to find it or get it yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way for you, if you're doing a particular event or curriculum or something, you can use our kits.
Yeah,
That great things that make great program that Amanda set up, or kind of a testing them out to see if you want to buy your own too.
yeah, yeah,
That's another reason why we have them, is that, you don't necessarily have the funding or the knowledge, or do my people in my community really want this particular kit? Let's find out. Let's do a test one without having to spend any money on it.
right, yeah.
And then if they like it, great. You can then see about finding the funding to get your own. Or if they are like, nah, we're not into this, you're like, all right, great, we
Yeah.
tried. We tested it out.
And so if you're getting this is the slide if you're getting techie with it, and this is the slide if you're getting entrepreneurial with it. So this is the link to source link, which I talked about before. If you're looking to partner with the organization on a specific activity or bring people out to do introductory resources or introductory workshops or do any of that, the Nebraska Startup Academy is a good place to start because they offer a free entrepreneurial 101 courses, and they are a nonprofit that does more partnerships, free resources, and a lot of cool stuff. Scott over at NMotion does he mostly works out of Lincoln and Omaha, but he also does some stuff statewide. And Scott works with the Startup Academy a lot too. So a lot of these people kind of work together. Like it's how it works. And the state level and nationwide Small Business Administration is a good place to go. And again, the SBA is where that innovation ecosystem runs out of. And they do both the funding mechanisms, but they also work as the ecosystem as a whole. And if you're looking for examples of what these different ecosystem models could look like in other states, the SBA is also a good place to go. And the Founder Institute has other free resources, and they also have an accelerator option that is all web-based. I don't remember which state that they're based out of, but they have a lot of cool stuff. I have about a jillion and one other resources, but meh, you know,
Yeah.
these fit on a slide.
It's just to get you started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get started. Yeah.
And this is another step by step. If you have, I'm going to actually delete one of these because you only need one of these. I'll delete this one.
Mm.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, you can feel
Yep.
free to reach out, or if you have questions now, I'm sitting here.
Yeah. Yeah. We have time. We'll answer any big questions that anybody has, even though, yeah, we're a little after 11. That's okay. We do have a comment from someone who's from one of our ESUs said they love the tech career categories. We'll try to incorporate these into our STEM trailers for schools.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then he also asked, and okay, if we have considered doing STEM makerspace trailers that libraries could check out for a spell. And so, and I clarified, he does mean like an actual, like a bookmobile, but like something on wheels, but for STEM makerspace type stuff. We have our tech kits that we send through the mail. I don't know that we at the commission would have the
There are like,
ability to do actual, like,
what
create an
is the
actual
name
physical.
of, so for a physical, is it School Bells? It's something bells, Beyond School Bells.
Hmm.
They have some programming, and if I remember right, they had a bookmobile or a techmobile, whatever you want to call it, but they had a mobile station. I don't know if they still do it, but this would be a good partner to look for.
Looking for that, yeah.
Yeah.
So our tech kits in the mail are
And there's
close to that.
also,
That's what we have so far. That what Amanda has put together is our tech kits through the mail, where we will mail out to you. Here's the whole. She's got there'll be a bunch of them.
and the
Um,
next closest,
Curriculum.
this isn't like a mobile unit like you're talking about, but 4-H also has STEM activity backpacks.
Mhm.
So there would be the possibility of either partnering with them, like the commission partnering with them, or individual libraries partnering with them to be able to put this together and distribute it.
Yeah.
But and 4-H also has some of the career stuff. I also know a lot of the vendors for the tech gadgets, and I know some of them talked about building more career focused stuff.
Mm.
So I could actually work with a lot of them to put together some of them already have it centered around their gadget. So I just stuck with that.
Of course, yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
They said nice. I'll check out both of these sites as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because many of the USUs have them. They're because he's talking about putting in the STEM trailers. Yeah, that can travel around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also say if any libraries or want to create one of these, we do have grants that
Oh,
we give out here at the Library Commission that you could use to fund them. If you wanted to do something like this for yourself. Our grants for 2025 are being awarded are done right now, but they'll be coming up for 2026 in the fall. We'd open up. We have youth grants for excellence, would be specifically focused toward youth programming, or our library improvement grants, which are just for anything at the library. It doesn't have to be focused just on youth. Both of those could be used to fund something like this if you did want to either have full-on trailers or just have your own tech kits that after you test out ours, you decide, yes, we do want to buy one. We can give you the grant funding to help pay for that through the Nebraska Library Commission grant program.
I also forgot about the VR Game Truck Nebraska. So if you're looking specifically at virtual reality, they also have a mobile unit that they can send out.
Mm.
And there's a ton of different stuff that
Reality.
there's stuff everywhere. I don't know what their driving range is, and it says that they're
Nebraska,
available
South
in
Dakota, and Iowa.
it sounds promising for them to go out to anywhere, but service area pricing.
There's a link there. It says Omaha Game Truck site.
Yeah, the one that I know there was one that started in Omaha and there's one that's still Omaha only, but it looks like this one goes out further. And this one must be located somewhere else. But yeah, I'm sure if you search
Norfolk is in the
around,
center of that map there.
yeah,
Huh, cool.
I'm sure if you search around and just find search for virtual reality truck Nebraska or virtual reality mobile, I'm sure there's more stuff out there now. Infinite Loop was the one that I was thinking of.
Mm.
Nebraska's largest VR arcade, and that wouldn't be a hard thing to convert if you already have a truck that is available.
And someone says it seems there's a lot of crossover with the community colleges too.
There's a
Might be a good
ton.
collaborative
There's a
for
ton.
libraries. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I didn't specifically list out all the different partners of the collaboratives, but the community colleges have innovation spaces that they're cultivating.
Yeah.
So pretty much every major community college has their own innovation space.
Yeah.
If they either already opened it or it's set to open within the next year or two. And every one of them calls it something different because
Of course.
they can't get along.
Everybody has to be
Yeah.
unique,
Yeah.
name for something. Yeah. All right. Oh yeah. Metropolitan Community College. Yep.
And I think Innovation Studio started it and then it just kind of
Right.
cascaded. And
Innovation
there's
Studio at the University of Nebraska Lincoln's been around for a while. Yeah.
yeah. And there's some funding that got caught up too. So we don't know if some of the projects are going to progress yet.
Mm.
So
Keep an eye on
basically,
it.
it's wait and see to find out what actually goes through.
Yeah. Funding is always a big issue. Absolutely
A
for
little
all
bit.
of us.
Yeah. And when funding gets cut off, suddenly, it
Oh
kind
yeah.
of throws a little wrench in the loop.
You're totally unprepared. Yep. For what to do
Yep.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I've got for you now. If you
Cool.
have any questions, feel free to email me, and I will also put the link to these slides in the chat.
Yep. We'll get that out. So I'll have that.
Copy.
Got some thank yous coming through. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Great info, of course. Where did my chat go? There it is. Oh, lost my chat. Got it.
And ecosystems are always just a big old thing to talk about. You know? So I will stop showing my screen so you can do your thing.
Oh, yep. I'll pull over and put mine up here. And you can see here, yep, I've got the slides. So that will be included when we do, when I get the recording up, yes. Yeah, thanks a ton. Just curious to do this. Good question. Actually, just came up at the end here. Someone wants to, not a question for you, Amanda, for me. Do we get continuing education credits for this? Yes, you can. And I'll get over to our page here. So yes, as far as continuing education credits are concerned for NCompass Live, if you go to I'm going to go to our main page here. If you're in Nebraska, we can issue you CE for our program. If you're from another state, you would need to contact whoever is your continuing education granting body, whether it's if you're a school teacher or you're a librarian, contact them and say, hey, I did this thing. If you attended this show live today, you will get, in about an hour, you're going to get an email directly from the GoToWebinar system that says, thank you for attending. This serves as your proof of attendance, and it has a certificate attached to it. So you will get a certificate from us proving that you attended this live show. And you can use that to submit to whoever does your CE. And it will for attending the live show. If you watch a recording, we do have, this is where our recordings go. For Nebraska libraries, we have a specific CE form that you would submit to us if you watch the recording after the fact. Due to the way our recordings are just on our YouTube channel, we cannot tell who watches the recordings on YouTube. So in that case, you just have to talk to your own CE people and say, so I've watched an archive recording of something. What do you want? How do I apply for that to get continued, CE hours for watching a recording? That's something you have to deal with your people. We have no way of knowing who individually is watching recordings, but we do have just for these live ones. So if you're here right now, you're going to get an email in about an hour from GoToWebinar. That'll be something you could submit. That is your proof that you actually watched today's show with us. And it will be worth, it's about an hour, 15 minutes worth of CE. I don't know however your people do it. Here in Nebraska, for every hour you watch, you get an hour of CE, continuing education hours. So for our archive live shows, as I said, the show's been recorded. Everyone who attended this today's show and registered will get an email from me when the recording is ready. It will have a link to the slides, of course, and it will be on our archive page. These are our upcoming shows. Our archive shows are here. Most recent ones are at the top. So today's will be at the top of the list. Should be ready by the end of the day tomorrow, at the very latest, as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. And I'll send you out. We also have a Facebook page for NCompass Live. If you like to use Facebook, give us a like. We send out notices about upcoming shows, and when our recordings are available, we post on here as well. We use a little hashtag NComp Live everywhere on social media. The Library Commission also has a Instagram account. The Library Commission does, and a Twitter account that will push out information. But NCompass Live itself has its own Facebook page here that you can follow if you like. Keep on things social media wise that way. You can search our show archives as well if you want to see if there's been anything of interest to you or on the show. You can search the full show archives or just the most recent 12 months if you want something just current. That is because this is our full show archives, and I'm not going to scroll all the way down because it's just, as you can see, it's a giant page. This is a full show archives going back to January 2009 when the show first premiered. So just do pay attention to the original broadcast date whenever you watch anything. Some of these shows will be great to still watch and have still good, useful information, but some things will become old and outdated. Resources may have changed drastically, links might be broken, people will work at different places than when they presented for us. So just pay attention. They all have a date here when the original broadcast was done, so you can tell how old something is. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes. And as long as we have somewhere to keep all of our shows, which right now is on our Library Commission's YouTube channel, we'll always have them out there available to you to watch. So that's today's show. Amanda will be back at the end of June, on June 25th. That's the last Wednesday in June. So keep an eye on our schedule calendar here to see what she might be talking about in another month.
It's a mystery.
Surprise. Next week, I'll hope you join us. June 4th, we'll be talking about food. Food for thought, addressing food waste, access, and insecurity through rural libraries. We've got a couple of people from my home state, New York, yay. Erica and Jack are going to be talking about a program they've done in New York State about helping deal with how libraries can help with food insecurity and waste and whatnot. So please sign up for that one and any of our other upcoming shows we have. Got June fully booked. I'm starting to get July already filled in too. So keep an eye on our calendar here. So thank you very much for everyone being here. Thanks, Amanda. Good to see you. We'll see you back here in a month.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.